Because Capital Ford is celebrating 60 years in business, we're holding a very special signature sales event where we're rolling out our strongest offers of the year on every new Ford car, truck, and SUV in stock, like a new 2025 Ford Bronco Sport. Lease today for just $399 a month or 0% APR for 60 months, plus no payments for 90 days on a new 2025 Ford F-150. But hurry, this signature sales event is for a limited time at Capital Ford in Santa Fe. Time is running out. This is the final drive of 2025 at Capital Ford. It's your last shot of the year to grab massive dealer discounts, year-end factory incentives, and aggressive trade-in offers. Like a new 25 Ford Explorer with 0% APR for 60 months or 0% APR for 60 months plus no payments for 90 days on a new 25 Ford F-150. So hurry for these exceptional end-of-year offers during the final drive of 2025 at Capital Ford in Santa Fe.
Hey, welcome in to another live episode of the Pit Press Live. I'm your host, Eric Moulton, for the night, and we got a loaded show for you guys. A little bit later, gonna be joined by Nick Nunez, Ed Nunez, myself. We're gonna be breaking down the VCU game coming up tomorrow, ESPN Plus, 5 o'clock Mountain Time. But before we get to Nick and breaking down ECU, VCU, Ed, how you feeling tonight, man?
Good, Eric. Love the hat, man. That logo that's old school, man. That reminds me of, back in the 90s. And they've gone through several different logos. And that's always one of my favorite, man, right there, when you have on. So, looking forward to chopping it up as always, man. And looking forward to talking about VCU.
We already got some questions popping up, and they're headed straight to you, Ed. Always nice hearing Ed's takes on Kenny's show. What's the latest on Kenny's show, Ed?
Kenny is funny, man. Kenny Thomas Unfiltered. Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 on 610. We got to get him on, in 95.9 FM. Kenny. Okay, so let me just tell you real quick. He'll have a rundown like what we're going to talk about: NBA, NFL. He has it printed out, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll get off topic, and talk about something, and it'll just take us 10 minutes. And it could be about the NBA, it could be about the NFL. Diego Pavia came up today. And so I enjoy listening to being with Kenny. I'm there usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. And you know what? Remember one thing, Eric, that guy played in the NBA against Karl Malone. So I'm always like, hey, man, how was that? Play against Shaq. Iverson was your teammate. Larry Brown was your coach. I'm an NBA guy that's watched since 1972. So I'm always like, hey, what was that like? And he's been very gracious and very, very, and always mentions the Pit Press. Always gives us some kudos and a shout out. And that always, I think, expands our coverage. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I always try to dial in and give you guys a hard time on there whenever I get a chance. But I'm a busy guy, man. Between work and
Oh, I
coming home
know,
to two
Derek.
little
I
ones,
know.
it's a lot. But one more question before we get to the guest of the evening, Ed. Here's a trivia question from you from Mr. John Romero. Ed, what Highlands High School football player and NFL Hall of Famer finished third in the Heisman voting to Paul Hornung? Since we're on the topic of the
Yeah,
Heisman
hold
and
up.
Diego Pavia.
It was Tommy McDonald, and Tommy McDonald, he made the NFL Hall of Fame, the Highland Hall of Fame too. When we went over Tommy McDonald's accolades at Highland, you wouldn't have believed it. That of course Highland was only one of two schools at that time. Tommy McDonald was a football player, a track guy, a basketball player. I think he played baseball too. And then he made the NFL Hall of Fame, Eric. He used to wear a single face bar. He was a wide receiver for Philadelphia, later for the Cowboys, later in his career. And he got the crap knocked out of him, man, crossing the middle, man. But he made the NFL Hall of Fame. So that's the answer to that. And Tommy McDonald, again, a member of our first Highland High High School class Hall of Fame, one of our first inductees.
That's cool, man. Local New Mexican kid. And we're actually going to get to another local New Mexican now, former Lobo, former El Dorado Eagle, Mr. Daniel Faris. Joining us tonight on the Pit Press, I think, Ed, you've been bugging this guy for a long time now to come on, and we finally have him on. Took you long enough, man, but
I've been slacking.
Daniel, thanks for joining the Pit Press tonight, man. How you feeling?
I'm good. No, I'm excited to be on here. Except, before we got on, you were just reminding me how you beat me my junior year at El Dorado at Capitol. One of the losses that I'll always remember. So thanks for rubbing that one in. A little salt in the wound there for me.
I'm surprised you still remember, man. That's 20-something years ago, but
that hurt my feelings.
Joining us tonight, Mr. Daniel Faris, former Lobo, played for UNM 2005 through 2009. Originally recruited by Richie McKay, but played for Coach Steve Alford 2009 to 2007 to 2009. Ended up winning the 2009 Mountain West title with that team. But I think the year before, you guys played Nebraska and Notre Dame in the NIT, and now you do color commentary for KKOB for Lobo basketball with the one and only Jeff Symbieta. How's radio treating you these days?
Man, I feel spoiled. I get to sit right there, center court, and I just get to say exactly what I was going to say anyways. Whoever's sitting next to me, everything I'm saying on air is probably what I'd be saying to my buddy anyway. So I'm having a blast. Jeff has the much harder job. He's got to do the play-by-play. He actually has to know everything on a different level than me. I just get to know some of the players, observe. So it's been a blast. I'll keep doing it as long as they'll have me around.
I wanted to ask you, Daniel, you also played professionally overseas for how many years did you play?
9 years total.
9 years overseas, man. And, that's quite an accomplishment anytime you play at the next level, and I enjoyed watching you at El Dorado High School. My nephew was 2 years younger than you. My nephew David, who
good old David.
Yeah, we just talked about, who I love so.
Great guy.
The kid is so dang nice. And, to everybody, right? I told you I used to try to get him.
It's hard.
It's
hard. I mean, do you know what my nickname was my freshman year? And this is under Coach McKay. So, he was tougher than people realize. He was still nice, and a good Christian man. Not that Coach Alford wasn't, but, it was a different vibe for sure. But, yeah, my nickname my freshman year was Friendly Ferris because they thought I was way too nice. So I get that. They kind of let me know every time I was in there that I was soft and that I was too nice. So, it made me have to sharpen my elbows a little bit and take a few from Quixote as well because he was my senior.
Man.
So, Dave was a big old lumberjack then. So I took a few on the chin, but it helped me down the road so I could dish out a few more.
Won back-to-back championships as a member of the El Dorado Eagles back in the day with Roy Sanchez, who's still there.
Still there. Coach is never leaving, man.
But tell us a little bit of, I told you, I saw you in the pit the other night walking in with your mom and dad. Yeah. But I've caught some of your broadcasts, man. And you know what? I love your style because you just, like you said, you're going to blurt something out and that's what you see. You said this about TJ Rock. It cracked me up. I told you when we walked in. 7-1, play like you're 7-1. Talk a little bit about how this has all come about.
honestly, they asked me to help out with all the radio stuff because Hunter and Portnoy, they got pushed up to altitude. So I'm the B team, but I am so excited to be doing it, to be honest. Like, I've been having a blast. But for me, with JT, he's 7-1. So anytime you're 7-1, I need you to be 7-1. You can still shoot. He's got great touch. Once he's gotten inside and mixed it up a little and been 7-1, then he can step out and shoot a 3 or 2. But when you have a size advantage like that, you have to be mean. And it's not necessarily that he's getting the ball every time and scoring, but it's you set a hard screen. Every time I'm going to go down and post up, and I know this guy's smaller than me, I may not get it, but I'm going to make sure I take his energy out. And every time you go, there's got to be contact. Hit, hit, hit. And over time, you'll see who's tougher. The first couple is one thing, but if you're going to take a hit every time down, I can really tell who's soft 5 minutes into the game. Because the guys that aren't going to be able to hit back, after a few hits, they just let me keep doing it. I'm like, cool. All right, I got you where I want you. The guys that are tough is they keep hitting back. And a lot of times those guys were bigger than me because I was trying to get the first shot to, say a point like, hey, I might be skinny, I might be this and that, but you're going to fill me today. Coach won't play me if I'm not mean.
Daniel, Kenny, I go in, I think I told you I go in with Kenny Thomas on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we've been talking about TJ Rock. Now, 4-4 from the floor the other night. He played, like you mentioned, Ray Rodriguez would say this, doesn't do us any good to be big unless we play big. I thought he played very big the other night, a couple of tip-ins around the rim.
Exactly.
What was your opinion of his play the other night?
I thought he did exactly what you want, especially for your backup center. Like I said, when you're coming in for those backup minutes, you got to give extra energy. You don't have to save yourself for the long stretch of the game, unless big fella's and Bouillon's in foul trouble and maybe he's going to fill that role. But, you're going to get 3 to 4 minutes, go in there and bust your tail. If you change the game with your defense, with your rebounding, coach will play you more. That's what I found. But I like what he's doing. Like I said, he goes inside, and he's not getting a ton of touches. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think that he needs to get 50 touches a game. But if he just gets 1 touch, 2 touch, it makes the defense think about it. And honestly, any good offense, if you get paint touches, it's going to always help. So those paint touches either have to come by a post-up, a drive, anywhere along there. But I really like JT's left-hand jump hook too. He's done it the last couple games. I've seen a couple of those moves, and it's smooth. And that was my favorite move in the post. So when I see another big guy throw that out, I get excited.
Did a lot of I thought you mentioned playing big in the and I think one of the things that Kenny and I talked about, and I think you would attest to this. He hasn't played a lot. He didn't play it last year at Iowa very much. So he's still growing.
Yeah.
Into that, where's the man? Feel where the man is. Catch, turn and face, drop step, all the things that you learn. He's coming. I think he's coming around real nicely though. And all of a sudden, Kenny would go crazy when he shot threes. Kenny was saying, "Hey man, the guy's 2 for 10. Stop shooting threes, and like you said, get in the paint." And so I think all of a sudden, Daniel, after last game and going into tomorrow night's game against VCU, he feels a lot more confident. Talk a little bit about that, and I'll turn it back over to Eric.
Absolutely. I mean, that was a game. That was a confidence builder because he had a good game against Highlands, but now you're playing a big team. This is the biggest team to come to the pit, and you perform like that. That's a confidence builder for sure. That's only going to help down the road when he's getting those spot minutes. I think he's going to be a lot more productive, and that production doesn't always have to be scoring. If he's scoring, that's a plus for us. What I really want to see from him every time is being physical and rebounding and his defense. I mean, you're 7-1. I need you to at least contest some shots, block a few shots. If you get dunked on, so be it. But I need you to be attacking everything by the rim.
Eric?
Hey, Daniel, I want to talk to you about just kind of the overall analysis of this team, right? You got Coach Olin's new formula and his mixture of guys, rotation, minutes, allocation, things like that. And finally, I think this last game against Santa Clara, things just started to click. Guys were looking for each other on the floor. They were knocking down shots. Dayton just completely took over. He looked unguardable. I didn't think Santa Clara had the personnel to be able to put a guy on him, to guard him, to face guard him, right? But, I mean, from the beginning of the year until what you saw against Santa Clara, what would you kind of identify as the culprit or the key in making this offense go?
Like you said, I think defense has been their identity. That's where they, hang their hat on. That's where everything starts. And that's been pretty consistent. Overall, the offense has been the part where it's gotten a little ugly, and I think it's just an issue of you have a completely new team. you have all these players who are trying to find their role. And we don't really have selfish guys is what I've noticed. You know, you don't have any guys that are always me first. I mean, if anything, I wish Chris Howell would shoot more. There's times where he's in there and I'm like, yeah, dude, you passed like 5 or 6 great ones. Like, get a little jump hook in there inside. You know, he's got touch. So I think that last game, they just started hitting jumpers. But I think really the main thing was they took their defense and they turned it into offense. They got downhill. And, you know, once you get rolling in basketball, you get a few layups, you get a few steals. All of a sudden that rim starts to open up a little. And those open threes that we might have been missing the last few games, they started to drop. And like you said, Dayton, when he puts his head down and drives, it gives our team so much because he's not a selfish player. So he's not just driving looking to score. When he has opportunities to score, he's doing it. But he's driving, getting those paint touches, he's dishing. So our team's not selfish, and I love that. And I think now they're just starting to find their roles a little more. You know, like Jay Call. He's our leading scorer right now still, I think. And I think he needs to keep getting his clips up, get his shots. He didn't have a great game last game, but honestly, we didn't need it, you know, which is good. Because if you were to tell me before the game that we were going to blow Santa Clara out and Jay Call was going to have under 10 points, I would have said, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen that way. But, you know, I think we have a lot of different weapons. Him, Bullion, Tanette. I mean, there's a lot of guys who I think are very skilled, and they're just trying to find their way and kind of, you know, what coach really wants from them.
Yeah, well, I think it's when you can contrast what we saw last year, right? Where it was the 2-man game with Dent and Nelly. The scoring was really top heavy. And this year it's just kind of spread out a little more evenly now. And really any guy can kind of go off. But one guy that I've been really critical of, and I've been pretty vocal about it on our show, it is a guy like Antonio Chol, right? I think he comes in with these high accolades. I mean, you know the game, man. The guy's 6'9". He's got handles. He obviously has the outside game. Where do you think he kind of finds his role? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. It's like maybe he's tweener, not exactly sure where he fits, but what's your take?
You know, he shot great 3-point percentage in junior college. He's shooting a pretty decent percentage this year. I think with him, when he gets his opportunities, he just has to be aggressive. I thought last game he didn't hesitate on any of his threes, and he knocked a few down, and that's what we need from him. When he gets it, be decisive. Know that we want you to be aggressive, because even when he drives, even if he can't get to the rim, he'll stop and do a fadeaway, and he's 6'9". You know, majority of the time he's going to have a smaller guard on him, so he'll be able to get that shot off. And I think by him being aggressive, it just adds another layer for us, you know, another person that can come in, give us a few buckets when we need it. But, yeah, I think he's one of the more talented players. And, you know, like you said, talent's great, but we need to see it come to fruition, right? I think he still has a few more steps to go before he really reaches that next level for us.
Yeah. Ed?
Daniel, before we go on, my beautiful daughter-in-law, Skylar Hubbard, who graduated at El Dorado, said wanted me to tell you hi. So
tell her I said hi, man. I haven't seen Skylar in forever, but man, little Albuquerque, 1 degree of separation, right?
Yeah, she's married to my son, and we just love her to death, man.
Oh, she's great. Really do.
But
she's a very nice lady.
Oh God, she's so much fun and keeps my son. And
I was going to say, to deal with the Nunez, you know she's got a big heart, right?
Keeps my son in that giant ego at bay, man.
Exactly. A lot of patience.
Yeah. And I say that again with love for both of them. But you know, you mentioned about the Lobos, Daniel, and you know, Daniel, you played with the Lobos, and you played when J.R. Giddings played. You played when Tony Dandridge. People forget how high that dude could jump. Jeez, man. Won a dunk contest. I think lefty. That guy was a special player. But you know, mentioning egos. Now, Coach Alford had, you know, when you think about coaches, and your dad Bart would know. Bob King, you know, I saw just a little bit of him. Norm owned the pit. Norm Ellenberg, ask your dad. He'll tell you. I heard
that was his. Okay. He was the man.
Yeah, man. Norm, the turquoise, the you know, the shirt open to the navel. Stormin Norman, storming in the pit. The only coach to ever have a cheer at the pit for himself. So Alford comes down right with the red blazer, played for his dad, played for Bob Knight, won a gold medal. He owns the pit. And J.R. Giddings told me one time that at a huddle, he yelled at him straight for 5 minutes straight.
Man.
Said that. I don't know if you remember that. But what I'm saying is that Coach Olin and this team here, you mentioned it. You just brought up a great point. The egos, nobody's saying I got to get mine or, you know, And you don't feel that like, look, nothing against Dents and Nelly and Mashburn and House.
But you knew where the ball was going.
Right,
you knew who had to score for us to be good. This team, we're still kind of guessing every game, right? We're just kind of like, well, I guess Jake Hall's going to have 20 or, I guess Bouillon's going to have his double-double. I think they're all still finding their way. And, for me, I can relate to this because my senior year, we had J.R. Giddens my junior year, all-conference player. Tony Dandridge was out that year because he had broken his leg. So JR was our guy. I knew every play we were running was triangle JR. And I actually led the Mountain West in offensive rebounds because JR and I was like, look, JR, if you lob it by the rim, I'm probably not going to be able to jump up and dunk it. That's just, I wish I had that in me, but it's not. So when you get it in there, even if you're doubled, put it up. I'm going to get the offensive rebound. Don't worry. If my man comes to help, put that up. And so my senior year, Tony and I, we had to find it. He's a different player than JR, both talented scorers, but we had to figure out kind of our cohesion. And I think the third game into my senior year, I really realized I was like, hey, I have to take over in a different level than I was last year. Not necessarily that, hey, I need to take 15 shots, but there were times where I had to demand the ball down low. And there were times I had to be a presence just to make it, easier on offense, give us that cohesion. And I think that's what this team has really been missing is that every game guy that's just going to come in and you're going to feel super confident in, right?
I think that's another thing. Okay, so I talked to Robert Portnoy, the voice of the Lobos before the season, and we were like, okay, we were watching. We hadn't seen a game yet. Who's going to be that scorer? Who's going to be this? Mm-hmm. And who's going to get me that rebound? Now, Tomasoff Bouillon, this guy you mentioned liking to bang. He said that in practice he likes to hit TJ, and TJ doesn't like it yet.
Yeah.
But one of the things you mentioned, man, was going down, getting hit. That's the life in the paint. That's
absolutely.
That's you gotta love it, man. You have to
accept it. If not, you're gonna get beat up by someone less talented like me, who wants to hit you every time because I know I have to come in and be physical just to set that mental edge. Because most nights I'm 6'9", maybe if I have my heels on 6'10". So, I'm not the biggest dude out there. I got big guys that are stronger than me, more athletic. So I would have to find an edge. Oh, my dog's over here. Sorry. But I have to find an edge, just to try and get anything I could on my opponent. And being physical is definitely a way. Like you said, you get hit every time. All of a sudden that chest starts to feel sore and guys start shying away from it. They don't want the contact. And when you start seeing that, that's when you have them where you want them.
And I thought you did agree. And I'm going to ask one more question, and I'll turn it back to Eric. And again, you've been very candid. The game, man. You played hard. I watched you in high school. I watched you in college. You played in, you played in the pros. That says a lot. But you told me before we got on, talk a little bit about Coach Alford, man. The guys and Coach Neal. How they helped you develop your game. Talk a little bit about that.
My name for a while, all I heard was F and Faris. So if you didn't say F before you said Faris, I probably wasn't responding. So Coach had me very dialed in. Let me say this. But as soon as he came in, he definitely set the tone differently. I remember JR, our McDonald's All-American and everything. We just got Coach McKay fired. So JR, was kind of on the hot seat. He'd had some issues with Coach. So Coach Alford came in and said, hey, listen, you're not going on this Bahamas trip with us. You got to get your grades in order. And if you don't get them in order, you're off the team. That let everyone wake up. We're like, man, if you're going to do that to our most talented player, our NBA prospect, I know my job's not safe. So that really set the tone. But as far as helping me, look, Coach Alford would yell, Coach Neal would yell, but I knew they cared. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they just yelled. Like when I did good, they'd say, great job, Daniel. When I did bad, they'd say a lot of different words and they'd say bad job after. They let you know. And that's what I appreciate is they'd spend the time with me in practice. I'll never forget one practice where I got in trouble because they're like, Daniel, do you think you're Tim Duncan? I was like, what do you mean? They're like, every time you get it, you just dribble and go into your jump hook. I was like, that's all I know. What else do you guys want me to do? They're like, look, the next time you do that, we're not throwing the ball to you ever again. I was like, what? They're like, you need to work on facing up every time you catch it in the post. You're slightly undersized big. I'm not 290. I'm about 240. So, I have good size, but I'm not going to be the biggest guy every night. So by facing up every time in the post, unless I had a very deep post catch, it let me see the floor and it let me get into my angles for my jump hooks. So, that was monumental. That really helped change my game and made me a different player down low than I was previously. And it helped me professionally as well. Because when you get overseas in FIBA, there's an arm bar every time in your back. There's not this where it's just a little bit of chest in college. It's grown men who have been playing for a very long time, and they know how to move your body and use angles. So you can't just get there and really back people down and just be straight physical, because you got another monster down there that can hold you like this. And they love the physical play. So the refs aren't going to call that stuff. They want to see the big guys bang. So it was definitely, it not only helped me at UNM, but it helped me for the rest of my playing career.
Yes, you mentioned that Steve Alford and Craig Neal, who he came, Coach Neal came under a lot of fire here when
he
Coach
did.
Alford left. And part of it, I always thought that this is my opinion, that when Cullen left, Cullen Neal transferred, I thought he quit on us. I did. I thought that Coach Neal quit on us, but I thought him and Steve Alford together made a great team.
Together, the good cop, bad cop team, right?
Right.
No, they're perfect at that. And it's hard to be a head coach. It really is, because there's so many things outside of just basketball that you're trying to do. You're trying to set a culture. You're trying to keep everyone happy. You're trying to get new recruits. There's a lot that goes into that. And, Coach Neal did have some success, but ultimately what happens to most coaches? You either succeed and you get a big deal, or eventually it's like, hey, thank you so much. We appreciate it. See ya. It's a business. And if you win, you're a hero and you're the best. If you lose, you suck. End of story. There's no wiggle room there.
No, hired to be fired. You're absolutely right about that. E, go ahead, man.
No, Daniel, I love that story, man. I geek out on just kind of the X's and O's part of basketball. And I think when you kind of make that transition from high school to college, and you have Alfred and Neal and those guys are in your face, right? But it's never personal. They're doing it because they want you to get better, but they're also challenging you to think. And think in progression and just kind of be anticipating the next step and just challenge you to kind of think differently. And I think that's kind of where we're at in this season, right? Like with some of these players who have never played together, they didn't have a lot of time in the off season together. So Olin is trying to integrate his offense, but also challenge them to think ahead of time, anticipate plays before they happen. Now, when you kind of broke down JT Rock's game a little bit, talk about Bullion and kind of the impact and him kind of being able to take over the game, right? Because he has that European playing experience.
Absolutely.
He does have that man
strength. He's the kind of dude I was playing
so
against all the time. Just a bully. Like you see him, he's got a solid frame, but the thing that I noticed that he does great is there's contact every time. Like we were talking about, all the best big guys in college, they're going to be physical. If not, I mean, you're going to have to show me some tape on some good big guys in college that aren't, because I haven't seen it. Like, even, I was just watching the BYU game earlier. AJ DeBonta, not a big guy, but when he gets in there, he's physical, But Bullion, he does such a good job of getting his space early on those offensive rebounds. He pushes people down with his lower body, holds them off, gets the ball, and he can score inside. He's got great moves. Again, kind of like JT, he has good touch. I'm okay if he shoots 1 or 2 threes a game, but I prefer that the big guys will shoot those after they've gone inside some. You know what I mean? Like, that was always kind of my thing. Like, let me get a couple inside. Let me feel good. Then I can step out and hit my jumper or get to that point. But I feel like for a big guy, get some layups, get some rebounds, focus on defense. Bullion does play really good defense too. He's an anchor for us down low, because when you can't get a defensive rebound, you don't get a stop. You know what I mean? And those are deflating for teams. When you play defense for 30 seconds and then they get an offensive rebound, what does the whole pit crowd do? As a player, you feel that too. It's deflating. You're like, oh man, got to play defense again, because, defense is defense. It's cool. You need it to win, but let's be honest. What are the highlights going to be on SportsCenter tonight? If it's a basketball one, it's probably a dunk. It's probably a crazy three. They're not showing a lot of defensive highlights unless it's a great block at the rim, So I think Bullion has been, man, I really hope he gets a second year too, but I think he's been one of the best freshmen that I can think of. I know he's 23 and everything, but yeah, I actually was laughing with Jeff Symbieta about this. If I was Kenny Thomas, I'd be a little mad. He's coming for all my records, and this dude's 23. Hold on. Not that Kenny ever had to worry about me. I didn't sniff a record from him. So, I was never challenging, but Bouillon, he's putting up some real numbers right now. So I think we're seeing a really cool trio of all of our freshmen. Like if you guys can remember another time, let me know. But I really can't remember another time where the Lobos have had three, maybe even, 3 real freshmen that are solid. And I would almost count JT Rock as a freshman because he didn't really play, even though he is a redshirt sophomore. But, he's going to grow a lot too. I think if he sticks with us, because he's got a good head on his shoulders and he seems like he's a really hard worker. And he's 7'1". Let's be honest. If you're 7'1", I can work with you, all right? You're already a monster. If we can just teach you to chew gum and run, we'll be set.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel, I'm going to go to some comments, and then Ed, I'll kick it back to you for a question. But we got a comment here from Ice Baby, or a question for you, Daniel, on who's the best ex-Lobo player you ever played with?
The best ex-Lobo? I would have to say in college, for me personally, my teammates, probably J.R. Giddens, Tony Dandridge is right up there. He was talented. And Chad Topper's the best shooter I've ever played with. But I'll never forget my junior year when J.R. was a senior. We were playing at UTEP. And I was tired. I had 3 or 4 big guys that were monsters, 6'10", 6'11", 270, 280, all big dudes that I knew I was going to have to basically face box out and hold the whole game. Because if I just tried to, hold them like this behind, they're just going to shove me under the rim and get the rebound. And Coach Hofford had been very clear that if I didn't do a good job boxing out, I was going to sit right next to him on the bench. So I told JR, I was like, hey, man, listen, I really need you this game. I know you're going to score, but I'm not going to be able to get very many rebounds because I'm going to be holding these guys, basically fouling them without getting the call. And JR got 19 rebounds. I have never seen a 6'4" guard grab 19 rebounds, ever, at any level, even YMCA. 19 rebounds at the Division I level is incredible. And he was just a monster. Like, JR did so many things. He obviously could score. I remember the Wyoming game where he had 38. The only play we ran was triangle JR. That's it. Just have JR stay in there in the middle, get him a little shot, and he was killing. But, there's so many good ones. Like, I played a bunch of pickup with Danny Granger, too, when he was still playing at that all-star level. And he was just a different level, too, man. I just remember when he got it and he shot, it was basically automatic. Like, his little one-dribble pull-up, you could play great D, but when he wanted to shoot, he would, and we'd get surprised when he'd miss. So, there's definitely different levels to basketball, and I was really fortunate that I got to see a lot of that and be able to compete with it. But, yeah, I'd say teammates I played with, probably JR, and overall, Danny and JR, that's tough because JR used to go at Danny. They used to have some real battles in those pickup games, and so that was always fun. I think JR took it a little more serious than Danny. If I'm being honest, Danny was just there trying to get his cardio, and JR was sitting there trying to prove a point. JR was trying to say, hey, coach, I'm better than this guy. And Danny was like, dude, I'm an all-star in the NBA. Like, you can come see me when you get there, right?
I got another comment for you from a Craig. Hey, Kyle's mom says hi.
Hey.
Not sure if you...
Hi. Tell her I said hi.
And then another comment from John Romero, last one, and then I'll kick it back to you. But Daniel Faris developed and blossomed similar to Cameron Bairstow. Keep up the great work at the Lobo games.
Man,
Ed,
thank you. And, dude, that's like the ultimate compliment because Cam Bairstow is one of the better big guys to come through UNM. Yeah, and just his work ethic was amazing. So, yeah, I love to be compared to Cam. I wish I was better than him, the competitor in me, but, he was a little better than me, to say the least.
Daniel, you had a great, you did. You worked hard here, man. And I know Coach Roy Sanchez, who I still talk to, he's a great guy. He thinks the world of you. You were able to win a couple championships with him. But there, we'll wrap it up after. I know you got to get going. But,
yeah, we're good. We're good. I'm having a blast.
Yeah, you mentioned. I got to ask you this. Coach Pitino won 20 games 3 years in a row. Went to the tournament on the cusp of a Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Program changes, whole new program, new coaches, new play. Everything changes, system, the whole thing. What do you what have you thought of Coach Olin, and where do you think this team? They're on a roll right now.
Man.
Where do you see them ending up? Maybe.
Honestly, I wasn't sure what I thought about Coach Olin. Never met him, before doing all the broadcasting stuff and everything. But the first time I met him, I had a lot of confidence in him before I knew any X's and O's. This may sound really weird, but I was just talking to him. I was like, hey, coach, like, are you going to stick around here for a while? Or are you going to have a couple good seasons and leave? And he was like, hey, man, you saw how long I was in San Diego. Like, we like it here. We want to be here. And so that right there, I was already like, huh, all right, I like that. Now, could he go to the Sweet 16 next year and then take a big job? Absolutely. It's the business of college basketball. But he seems like a really genuine person. And, I mean, he's been coach of the year multiple times in multiple conferences. You know, he knows basketball. Ultimately, it's going to be if we win. If we win, then he's a great coach. We'll keep him forever. But, you know, if we don't win, then, yeah, they'll be like, oh, man, terrible hire. He wasn't ready for here. And it's just how the narratives go, right? But I think his X's and O's are good just from what I've seen, from the adjustments that he's been making, kind of hearing him coach. And, you know, the difference between him and Coach Alford, the biggest one is he doesn't seem like a huge yeller. I think his assistant from Indiana on the bench looks like the one who's going to yell. Yeah. You know, but like we were talking about, that good cop, bad cop. You got to have both, because someone needs to go to the player after they just got ripped and be like, oh, it's okay. Coach said all that, but, you know, he just wants you to do this, you know, kind of to bring them in so that they can get the point instead of just, man, Coach said F, 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 and that's it. But, yeah, no, I feel so fortunate that I got to play for Coach Alford. He definitely changed my life. And I'm also thankful for Coach McKay recruiting me, because without him, I wouldn't have even been here. So, I mean, playing at UNM was definitely one of the honors of my life. And, man, I'm just so thankful I got a chance to finally play. I didn't think I was going to ever get a chance to play after my freshman year, to be honest.
No, you gotta
tell me, or yeah, tell us a little bit more about that, Daniel. I know we're going to let you go here in a little bit, but I mean, I had a chance to play against you in high school.
Mm-hmm.
You were by far probably the top basketball player in the state coming out our senior year in 2005. But talk about your recruitment process, and then growing up in Albuquerque, right? You went to El Dorado.
Yeah.
Was UNM kind of always at the top of the list? Were you like a fan of UNM growing up as a kid? And did you take visits anywhere else? Like, walk us through how, what that experience was like. To be honest,
UNM jumped on late. I had a really good summer after my junior year, and I had my top three were Texas A&M, TCU, and UTEP at the time. UNM had only offered me a walk-on spot. I'll never forget sitting in their office, and Coach D was like, we're really glad with what you've been doing. We want to offer you a walk-on spot. I was like, Coach Diedrichson, no offense, but Texas A&M offered me a full ride last week. Like, do I look stupid? Like, UNM's awesome, but I'm sorry. If I'm going to get free school, I'm going to go get free school. Like, I'm not going to come here for, you know, a walk-on spot. And then I kind of had a couple more really good tournaments where other bigger schools were coming in. UCLA was starting to contact me some, which that one I got super excited of. But UCLA was like, yeah, you're our third big guy. So if these other guys say no, these other two, then we'll offer you. I was like, oh, well, better than UNM. That's cool. I was like, that's more than UNM was offering me at the time. But they eventually came around, I think, probably because they were looking kind of stupid because they hadn't offered me and, you know, bigger schools had. But once they offered me, I took one visit. I had other officials set up for A&M and TCU that were after UNM. But in my heart, this is where I wanted to go the whole time. My feelings might have been a little hurt that they didn't want me like I wanted them. But, man, like you said, being from here, getting to play in the Pitt and State, like, there's not many places like this here. Like, I remember going down to Texas A&M on an unofficial, looking at the, you know, they showed me Kyle Field, they showed me all the arena and everything, and all I thought was, like, I could easily play here, but I want to be at a basketball school. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to be at a basketball school. And so when UNM finally came around, I was very, you know, I was a little angry, if I'm being blunt, but I was just super, super thankful to get the opportunity and just get a chance to compete to play.
Yeah, Ed.
You know what, Daniel, we appreciate you joining us, man. You were meant to be a Lobo. You know, I told you you served on the New Mexico board with New Mexico Games board with your dad. He had to take a leave of absence, but we would talk a lot, man, about, you know, you and David, my nephew, you being a Lobo, man, and your mom and dad are great people. Hey. Fine people, man.
Thank you guys, man.
Yeah. No, hey. We really appreciate you being on, man.
No, hey, I'll definitely come on again if you guys will have me. This is a blast, man.
Absolutely, we will.
Yeah. And Eric and I got to talk because I'm still mad at him for beating me in 2004, man. I'm not going to let that one go ever, just so you know.
I'll run into you at the pit and give you a hard time again, man.
But you need to, man, because it still hurts my feelings. Thanks, guys.
Hey, Daniel, thank you, man.
We will be right back after a quick commercial break. You are watching the Pit Press Live.
Time is running out. This is the final drive of 2025 at Capital Ford. It's your last shot of the year to grab massive dealer discounts, year-end factory incentives, and aggressive trade-in offers. Like a new 25 Ford Explorer with 0% APR for 60 months. Or 0% APR for 60 months plus no payments for 90 days on a new 25 Ford F-150. So hurry for these exceptional end-of-year offers during the final drive of 2025 at Capital Ford in Santa Fe.
Hey, welcome back to the Pit Press Live. Ed, great get, man. Daniel's a great guy. We go way back. I mean, even from our playing days back in high school. But I'm glad to see him still kind of tied to the program in a lot of ways. And I've been able to listen to some of his color commentary. And obviously, we know Jeff Symbieta, but I'm glad he's able to do what he's doing. And he obviously knows the game, but he's got a lot of backstory, a lot of history with UNM. So good get, man. I'm just curious on your overall thoughts, and we'll get Nick's thoughts because I know that he was listening patiently backstage.
Just a real guy, reminded me of Lamar Jordan when Lamar came on for football. Lamar, his energy, but Daniel lasted himself. He's always been like that. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He was a heck of a player, played 9 years in the pros, but he'll tell you that Steve Alford said he sucked and he'll laugh. I really enjoyed the heck out of it, man. We've had a lot of great guests on the Pit Press, and I think he was one of the top ones because he's so real, loves the Lobos, loves basketball, loves to be around the game, just like all of you do. My son does, Eric, you do. All of us love to be around the game and around we love to be around all of it. But, Eric, you played basketball and baseball. You played college baseball. People may not know that, but you did. So I think it's just great to have someone that's proud, happy, laughs, loves to be right there at the front row there and give his take. And so I think he's very grateful for, the opportunity that he gets, and we're very grateful to have him on tonight.
Yeah, agreed. Well, we're finally able to be joined by the better half of the Nunez duo, Mr. Nick Nunez, play-by-play with ProView Networks, and the Lawman. Nick, what's up, man? Happy you were able to join.
What's going on, guys? Good evening. Really enjoyed that conversation that you guys had with Daniel Faris. I remember growing up watching him play high school basketball. Dad, you mentioned my cousin David, was on varsity with Daniel. So I went to pretty much every El Dorado game when he was a senior and was just a huge fan. I was super intrigued kind of at the end of the conversation. I think, Eric, it was you who asked him about what his recruiting journey was like. And I didn't realize that many big name schools were looking at him, like UCLA and Texas A&M. I think I was looking at his numbers. His senior year, he was All Mountain West second team, average double figures. So was just a really good guest. And you guys asked some really good questions, man. Great interview.
Thanks. Well, I know that you had spent some time previewing VCU, which is the second part of our show this evening. We'll have an article coming out probably later tonight or first thing early tomorrow morning, just kind of previewing what the Rams come with. They come in at, I think it was 6-3. They've got a couple of really solid wins. Have already played a familiar foe in Utah State. Utah State edged them a little bit. I don't know the final score of that game, but look like a well-rounded team. They shoot the lights out, and they're another strong defensive opponent. But Nick, I'm not going to steal your thunder. What can you tell us about the Rams?
Their depth is probably the thing that stands out to me the most, Eric. They play 11 guys. 11 guys play at least 13 minutes or more. They're 5 starters. Nobody plays over 25.7 minutes. So they stay fresh. They come in droves. I haven't really been able to watch a lot of them. Just got other things going on. But I did peek at their game against Samford that's available on ESPN+. I would encourage Lobo fans, if you've got a subscription, you want to learn more about VCU, just watch them play. They were pressing Samford. I think they definitely had the advantage athletically. They've got some really athletic guards that I think are going to be an interesting matchup with Dayton Albury and Uriah Tenet. They've got a guy, his name is escaping me right now, Brandon Jennings, I believe is his name, number 0. Nick Lewis is another guy. He's a true freshman. And they just, throw a lot of bodies on the floor. Looking at some of their Ken Pom profile, Eric, 15th in the country in defensive adjusted efficiency. 45th in the country in defensive effective field goal percentage. So those stats tell me that they just make teams shoot really bad shots. Haven't really, dove too deep into their opponent field goal percentage shooting profile, but that's what it says on Ken Pom. And I think the other thing, Eric, and I'll stop being long-winded, but I think the environment that the Lobos are going into is going to play a huge factor. I mean, playing in the pit against Santa Clara, you were there. The pit really got into that game. As you posted on our X account, the pit was rocking. And they're about to go into an atmosphere where they're going to get rocked by the opposing fans. The Siegel Center, I don't think it gets rowdy like the pit, but they usually sell out. 3 out of their 4 home games have sold out. The other one was like 95% capacity. So I think it's going to be a tough matchup, man, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm sharing the screen now, just their game against NC State. They were at NC State, number 25 in the country. They actually took them down to the wire, man, and you can probably break it down a little bit more for me, but Hill, I think it was Hill Jr. is the guy that the Lobos got to look out for. He's a guy that's going to definitely let it fly. He's shooting 5 to 6 3-pointers a game at like a 40 or 45% clip. And then just in general, they have guys kind of spread out through the perimeter. And then they have a decent athletic big in Djokovic. Am I saying his name right? I'm not sure. He's a kind of an elusive big, not your traditional, like, back to the basket, get to the rim and go up with it, but he's out and setting screens, and I think he's got somewhat of a mid-range game to him. But this is a team that definitely gets after you. I'll bring up some stats and we'll go over some of their Ken Pom stuff and then some shooting charts, just looking at overall tendencies. But I think the guy that they definitely got to keep an eye on, and I would probably have to agree with you, Nick, that Albury is going to have to match up with Hill, because I think he's the guy that kind of makes this team go. But Ed, I'm not sure if you've had a moment to kind of look at VCU's stats or watched a little bit of video to kind of get a first-hand look at them, but wanted to get your take on your first impression of the Rams.
No, I think my son wrote, like, we'll be seeing that article later, but I did look a little bit today, and son, you talked about their depth. They also beat Utah State by 3, and you talked about some other their victories, Nick. They talk a little bit about that. They beat Virginia Tech, South Florida, North Carolina State. Talk a little bit about their victories, and they did beat Utah State, beat them, I think. So, but talk a little bit about that, son. They're who they faced so far, and I'll follow up with another question after that.
Yeah, Utah State, they actually lost that game by 3.
Yeah, that's right. They lost by 3.
But it was a close game. No, I think you were right on that, Dad. I mean, they were down in that game. They were down by double digits in the second half. And that's the other thing that scares me about this team is, everyone's all into the advanced analytics now. Evan Maya, Ken Palm, Synergy Sports, kind of whatever you want to look at. But kill shots, that's where a team goes on a 10-0 run or more. I haven't been able to count this, Eric, and I don't think we subscribe to Evan Maya yet, but I would venture to guess, based on what I've read, that VCU just goes on these runs of like 12-2, 14-2. Against Samford on Friday in their win, they went on a 27-6 run across the late in the first half and early in the second half. So they do a really good job of playing downhill. As far as their schedule, Dad, impressive wins over Virginia Tech, who's in the top 70 in Ken Palm. And they had an impressive win over South Florida earlier in the season in the Battle for Atlantis MTE that they played in over Thanksgiving. But South Florida came into that game averaging 100 points per game, and VCU held them to 66. So this is a defensive-first team for sure. They're coached by Phil Martelli Jr. He coached Bryant last year. They played Michigan State in the first round before the Lobos lost to them in the second round and gave them a game for the first half. So, this is a good physical team. They've got some good wins on their schedule, and it's going to be a good game, I think.
Nick, you mentioned that. Go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to mention that is a good South Florida team. They just ran Colorado State out of the gym, and right now a lot of people were kind of siding with Colorado State being one of the better offensive efficiency teams in the country, not only the Mountain West, but kind of one of the front runners for the Mountain West. Go ahead, Ed. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Nick, you mentioned it's going to be a challenge for New Mexico going in a hostile environment. And it's kind of funny because New Mexico just came off one of their biggest games of the year and created a hostile environment for Santa Clara here. So I think it's going to be interesting. Life on the road, we know that is way different. They might get VCU might get the boost from their fans that New Mexico got from theirs on Saturday night. But I think with the way New Mexico's been playing, they're coming out their best game of the year. And this is going to be a very good test. Remember New Mexico beating VCU here last year, 78-71. That's a game Donovan Dan had 40 points. I had to look back on the box score there. But one of the things you mentioned, son, that you said that the Lobos, when they look across the court, they may see a version of themselves. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, both teams, again, strong defensive identities. Phil Martelli Jr. said in his pregame press conference previewing UNM that he thinks these teams are pretty similar. Both teams play in a very aggressive style of defense. VCU presses. UNM hasn't pressed all season long. They started doing it a little bit against New Mexico Highlands, and they really carried it over into the Santa Clara game. It'll be interesting to see if they do that this game. Again, I think VCU across the board is probably the more athletic team. I think we've got a very athletic team. I'm not saying we're not athletic. I'm saying VCU is probably exceptionally athletic, particularly at the guard position. So as far as, UNM looking in the mirror, Dad, yeah, I think their identities are similar on defense. And then offensively, UNM's shot profile, they've shot 148 twos and 148 threes. They're right down the road, pretty even. VCU, I think they're a little higher in twos, and Eric's pulling up the graphs right now. Let me see if I can maximize my screen. Yeah, you see they've shot, what is that, Eric? 187 shots in the right near the rim. So that's 4.5 feet away from the basket is where that's charted, and then 88 shots in the painted area. So they get to the paint a lot. I think on paper these are pretty similar teams.
This is going to be a great challenge. Some of our commenters on our live chat are saying that it's a big challenge for UNM. But let's remember, I think I was saying this to Kenny today on his show. New Mexico really hasn't had a bad game since Nebraska. Nebraska, after that, they played pretty well. They've run a streak here. They're 7-2 now. And but life on the road we mentioned, and VCU has some good wins here. So I think it's going to be a real challenge for UNM on the road tomorrow night. But one, I think, again, you look at the size, 6'11", Djokovic 6'11", Jadrain Tracy 6'6", Keyshawn Mitchell 6'11", and Michael Bell 6'8". So they pound the offensive boards. They average 34 bench points per game. So that's making they run them in droves. Coach Marcelli said that they're going to keep people fresh, and so UNM I think has to match that effort. They did a great job of it here, but playing here is a lot different. And I just want to tell everybody too, before I turn it back to Eric, Eric Moulton does a great job with graphs and putting our show together, and the promotional ads are amazing. I've had people say that. So Eric, once again, a shout out to you there, man. I don't want people to take it for granted. You do a great job of that stuff. Go ahead, E.
Yeah, no, I think you make a lot of good points there, Ed. And I think another key thing that we got to watch with tomorrow is this is a team that has like a 9, maybe 10-man rotation. So they keep guys fresh. You could see just kind of the minute allocation there. Most guys get into most games, and you could see Hill, Tracy, and then Djokovic all averaging double figures. But Ed, I know that you're on the rebounding type. That Barry Evans guy, he's impressive, man, and he's not going to blow you away with like just brawn or size, but he's athletic, and he's going to be able to jump higher. He's got a long reach, so he's going to be able to rebound. And right now he's averaging 6 rebounds a game, so he's leading the team there. But in terms of overall size, I don't know how the matchup is going to work with Djokovic having to defend a guy like Bullion. And if we can like Daniel Faris talked about it, if we could get some minutes at a TJ Rock and just get him around the basket and he can be really productive with the minutes that he does get, I don't know if VCU has the guys inside to necessarily match up with those two, because this team does like to get out and run. It's not necessarily their game to kind of bang inside, but that would be kind of a potential matchup that I'm looking at. I don't know, Nick, is there any other matchups that you're looking at outside of maybe Terrence Hill or Jadrian Tracy?
Yeah, you guys have kind of hit on some of the guys. I echo what you said about Barry Evans. He's had 2 double-doubles on the season for them. He transferred to VCU from Bryant with Phil Martelli Jr., so a really experienced basketball player. He's a lefty. He's number 8. I really like him. Not really sure who UNM throws on him early. It's hard to say, Eric, because UNM's defense, I still can't quite figure it out, to be honest. I mean, you can tell they're playing man-to-man a lot of the time, but sometimes they go to that matchup zone where they just pack the paint and one guy stays in an area for like 4 seconds and then he goes and guards somebody. It's like, I'm still like, man, what are they doing out there? Whatever they're doing, it's working because they pack the paint so well. I had their Ken Palm profile pulled up, and I'll pull it up here in a second. No, you've talked about Djokovic a little bit. He only played 10 minutes against Samford, and I think Phil Martelli Jr. said in the postgame press conference that his minutes were limited because defensively he just wasn't moving laterally. And so, Eric, I think you hit on a really good matchup. Does he guard Bullion? How many minutes does he get? Because Bullion, he's not just a back-to-the-basket guy. And he said that after the Santa Clara game. I think of myself as a forward, not a center, is what Bullion said. So, I think that's an advantage that UNM has. Get him out on the perimeter, have him take Djokovic, or if it's the other guy, and Dad, you brought up his name earlier, Keyshawn Mitchell, number 22, 6'11", transfer from Bryant also. I think Bullion has the ability to take him off the dribble as well. So I think that's a matchup that can work well for UNM.
Yeah, Nick, I do want to highlight something that you've kind of been harping on, and you just mentioned it a little bit ago, just based on the Lobos defense, right? Like what have been their tendencies. I think the graphic on the far right is just going to prove exactly what you've been trying to explain. So on the defensive side for UNM, where are the percentage of the shots coming from on the floor? You could see there in the paint, which is highlighted in blue right there, they're giving up 23% shot selection, or 12% kind of in that mid-range to defenses. So teams aren't going inside. I think that's on purpose. Eric Owen has mentioned that in his press conferences. It's just the type of defense that they're playing. They're defending the basket. They're helping on every penetration. So they're trying to protect the rim, but that's also leading to giving guys open shots on the perimeter, right? We've seen that beat them in the past, but it didn't hurt them against Santa Clara because I think they were a little bit faster or anticipating having to recover and get out on the shooters. And that's something they're going to have to be aware of against VCU because they've got 3 or 4 capable shooters who are not afraid to shoot the ball. I think they've got guys that are shooting 3, 4, 5, or even 6 3-point shot attempts each game. So they're just going to have to be aware of where those guys are on the floor. Obviously, they want to focus on packing the paint to protect the rim, but they've also got to get back up because I think the Lobos are a little susceptible around the rim, around the arc.
Yeah. Great point, man. I think that graphic on the far right, like you mentioned, teams look like they're, it's 195 shots right around the top of the arc. And like you said, it's because UNM packs the paint. So, no, that's going to be super important for the Lobos tomorrow in Richmond.
Yeah, Ed, not sure if you have any other thoughts on just kind of, did you watch any highlights? Don't mean to call you out like that, but
no, I didn't get a chance
to time.
Just to what we showed here, but I did want to comment on one guy that just didn't even get to see playing time in a blowout the other night, and that's Javis Miller. So I don't know if he's totally fallen out of the rotation, but he had a good game against UC Riverside earlier in the year where he hit 3 threes, and we haven't seen much of him lately. So I don't know if Miller's completely out of the rotation, but he had showed some promise earlier. But we'll see tomorrow night. I think, some of the other talk I'd heard about TJ Rock and Bouillon maybe playing them together as a tandem. They'll wait on that. I don't think you'll see that because of the defensive. You're not sure if they're going to be able to play defensively together, getting out in transition. I don't know how fast Rock is yet. So that's been mentioned. But he's developing. He's progressing. He's coming along pretty nicely, man, for a guy that I don't think played, very much. We mentioned he didn't play very much last year. And Kenny talks about it on the show all the time about he thought players were looking him off when he was posting up. And maybe they were. The trust issue wasn't quite there yet. But I think with each game, he's growing. And that, when Coach Yvonne Sanchez would say that when she did a game with, you see the numbers, you see his numbers posting up, give it to him. Give him the ball. And I think, he's proven himself to be that little left-hand drop step is a move that he's developed. As he plays more, he'll get more in his tool bag from the post. So I think tomorrow the bench is going to definitely come into play. He's going to run a lot of players in and out. So I think, UNM, his bench is going to Uriah Tenet played very well last game. TJ Rock played well. Luke Hopt had 6. He's not really talked about probably as much as he should be. He's been solid. So I think tomorrow the bench is going to definitely have to come to play too.
You make a really good point there, Ed, because I think Nick and I even talked about it in game. I think guys are looking off TJ Rock right now. Couldn't really say if it's they trust, but I mean, Daniel Faris talked about it about 20 minutes ago, right? You got to go inside in order to kind of get guys to collapse, look for some of the perimeter shooters. And you got to have a little bit of mixture there. It can't be just, it's almost like it's wasted space. If he's down there fighting for a position, you got to give him a chance down there, get him some looks, and he's got to be decisive when he gets the ball too. He can't just sit there and wait for something to happen. He's got to know what to do. And I think that'll come in overall development. But you did talk about Javis Miller, Ed. I don't know if anything has come out, but he did suit out last game. I don't think he ever really took off his warm-up shirt, so I don't know if that was planned that he sat for most of the game, or if it's kind of a direct effect from Patton playing the way that he has, giving the effort on the boards and scoring a little bit here, kind of being a little more assertive on the offensive end, because I think we've started to see his game kind of be involved in the offense a little bit more. So it's tough. You got to look at like the overall evolution and who's going to get minutes and who's not. And I think Javis Miller and Patton kind of share that same role. So it's who's going to have the hot hand and who Owen's going to go with in that moment. And I think you got to go with the guy that's probably going to rebound and play defense a little bit better. So I don't know if Nick, you have any additional thoughts on that, or if you got any more news on maybe why Miller hasn't been seeing the floor as much.
he's been at, or Coach Olin has been asked. I think Jeff Grammer did ask him. I don't know if it was after the Highlands game. One of the more recent games, somebody asked him, or why is Javis Miller not playing? Because if you look back at their early games, Dad, like you mentioned, he had a really good game against UC Riverside. He was one of the first guys off the bench. I think against New Mexico State in the first half, he was one of the first guys off the bench. Started to shoot the ball pretty well. I want to say in their second game, maybe it was against East Texas A&M or UT Arlington. He saw a few shots go down, so he found his way into the rotation. And Eric, I think you hit the nail on the head. Kevin Patton Jr. had a really good game against Alabama State. Miller's minutes had kind of started to go down in the Hall of Fame Classic. I don't think he played much. He's a little undersized, I think. He's 6'4", which, is decent D1 college size. But he kind of plays that 2-guard, 3-guard. You get a little bit more length with Patton. You look at, they're pretty crowded at that wing spot, Eric. They got, and I'm counting these guys as 2s and 3s. It's all kind of interchangeable at this point. But you got Patton, Tannett, Hopt, Howell, Chol, Hall. I mean, there's just, that's kind of their rotation at those positions. And he's just fallen out of it. So I don't think there's not an injury that I'm aware of. It's just other guys are playing better.
And you have to look at the matchups too, right? Like in a game against Santa Clara, they obviously wanted to go with the more elusive, fast ball handler guards in Albury and Tannett that really kind of impacted the game for the Lobos and really kind of pushed them past Santa Clara because they just couldn't match up with them athletically. So that could be another thing to look at where Javis Miller isn't necessarily the guy that you're going to want to have bring up the ball, or he hasn't really proven to be that guy yet. So yeah, it's just really kind of looking at it from a matchup perspective and rotation of guys you have out on the floor, size, length. I think Patton offers you a little bit more, just like you and I said.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. Yeah. No, I think we kind of touched on a lot on VCU. I know you were asking about this, Eric, and I don't mean to go backwards, man. But, you had mentioned Terrence Hill, their leading scorer. You broke down all his statistics, and I meant to get to this a little bit more. They're going to have to mark him, because he went 5 for 5 from the three-point line against Virginia Tech, and then I think he went 5 for 9 against Samford. And he's got a really quick release. In the article that we put out tomorrow, we've only got one video clip because the other angles that I could find just weren't great. But you'll see against North Carolina State, he buries a 3 from like 40 feet. He's got a quick release. For context, he was shooting a higher percentage than Jake Hall was when Hall shot against New Mexico Highlands and against Alabama State. So this guy can shoot. Lobo's got to mark him. I'm not sure who's going to match up on him. But he is a really, really good player, and it looks like this is that tape from the NC State game. Yeah, and Dad, you mentioned this one earlier. I mean, this was a 6-point game, and VCU was kind of right there at the end. I think it was one possession sometime late in the second half, and that's a good road environment, too, that they're playing in at NC State. Look, I really like their coach, man, Phil Martelli Jr. You just listen to him in the post-game press conferences, and he just owns the media. He knows what to say. He's hard-nosed. There's a good look of Hill right there, Eric. They got a couple guys with dreadlocks.
That's the
He's
play you're
6.
talking about.
Yeah,
that shot was deep too.
It's deep, dude. It's deep. So, rounding it out, Lobos are going to have to mark that guy.
Oh, I think they're going to have to mark several of these shooters, right? They can't get lazy off it. I think not going to. We saw it in the last game. I thought the overall aggression on the defensive side, they were hedging a lot of the screens, but the guys were fighting through screens and going over them. So they weren't letting those shooters kind of get some room, and they're going to really have to focus on that because I think VCU might have a little bit more on the athletes and ball handler side than what Santa Clara offered, and they're just kind of littered with shooters all over the floor. I think at one point VCU could have potentially 4 shooters on the floor at one time, so they're going to stretch a lot of these defenses out. But I haven't seen them get into the paint too much. I think they're a team that's going to settle and look for the outside shot more. That's maybe my perspective or my opinion on it, but I'm basing a lot of that on just what I watched in this NC State game.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, man. There's a podcast that I listened to a little bit this week for Lobo fans that are interested. Ram Rewind. You can find it on Spotify, probably Apple Music too. This guy, George Templeton, does a really good job of breaking down VCU basketball. And he talked about how shot selection for the Rams has been a problem for them in the early part of the season. I think it was maybe against Vanderbilt where they just chucked up like 42 threes. Jadarian Tracy, who you mentioned earlier, Eric, he's number 2. He shoots 40% from the three-point line on 47 attempts, had a really good game against Samford. He's another shooter, like you mentioned. So, yeah, man, I think they just want to play downhill. If they can force a steal or get out in transition, they've got the athletes to do it. So Lobos are going to have to be prepared in many different phases of the game.
Maybe you looked at their Ken Palm earlier, Nick. I couldn't really see their offensive efficiency stats, but I want to say they were a top 100 team in the country, sitting at like in the, I want to say the lower 80s, 81 or 82 in overall offensive efficiency. So they like to get out and run, and they score in bunches, man. And you talked about kill shots. This is a team that gets out and runs and will go on those 10-0 runs and put teams away or come back on teams. So it's for the Lobos, I think they just can't really let their foot off the gas with this one. Mark shooters, make sure they know where the personnel is on the floor at all time, and really kind of focus on the rebounding, because this is a team you can't afford to get second chances. And I think this is a team that definitely thrives off something like that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Another thing they do really well is they get to the free throw line a lot. They're 27th in the country in free throws attempted. I think they shoot like almost 20 free throws a game. So they get down low. One game, Djokovic had 18 free throws on his own. So the Lobos got to keep them on the line. You know, I don't think UNM is terrible at putting teams on the foul line. They're pretty disciplined. But yeah, man, VCU does a lot of things well. I think they're similar in some ways to Santa Clara. I just think, like you mentioned, Eric, they're a lot more athletic. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, it is. They're probably going to offer a little bit more defensively too, in terms of trying to push the pace. So I think the Lobos feel comfortable playing at that pace, the same pace that they had played against at Santa Clara. So it'll be an exciting matchup, and it's a Q1 opportunity. This is going to be one of their only chances to get something like that on the road, a true road win before conference play starts. So I think they got to take this one seriously if they really want to positively impact their resume.
Yeah, no doubt. What do you think, Dad? Your final thoughts on VCU?
You know what? You laid a lot of good stuff out about the way they play, the ball pressure, Eric marking shooters. We saw, and then plus they're at home. We saw Jamel Jones at New Mexico State get very confident. Neither team had played in that rivalry game, but I thought that when it got, things got hot there at the Pan American Center, Jamel Jones shot with confidence. And these guys are playing at home. They want to get revenge for last year's games when Lobos beat them here. So you know what? It's a big test for New Mexico, man. And it's not the hostile environment that Santa Clara stepped into here on Saturday, but it's a hostile environment. And I think, son, you mentioned both teams are mirror images. In New Mexico, as far as defensively, their principles defensively, I think they're a very solid, sound defensive team for the most part. They lost a couple of guys in Las Cruces on some rotations, so they're going to have to be very, very careful about that. And then you're not at home. The sounds and everything else is so different. Albury said on Saturday they wanted to keep stealing the ball and hearing the crowd. It's a lot different here at VCU tomorrow. It's a good challenge, though. It's a good test. And I think New Mexico is, coming off their best game of the year, played downhill. They ran Santa Clara's butts out of here, man. They did. So I think it's a good test for UNM tomorrow, and one they better be ready for.
Yeah, no, 100% agree.
Well, I think that'll do it for us tonight, guys. I want to thank everyone out there that tuned in to watch the Pit Press live. Check out our website. We'll go ahead and get Nick's article up on the website sometime later tonight or first thing in the morning, previewing the VCU game. Also want to give a special shout out to our sponsors, Zach Brandt at Capital Ford up in Santa Fe. We also have a new sponsor in Quick Lane, which is the service provider at any Capital Ford or any Ford dealership in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. If you need oil changes, tire rotations or any kind of service on your vehicle, check out Quick Lane. And then lastly, Affordable Solar. Neil has been generous enough to support us from the very beginning. So again, want to thank our sponsors there, but check out our website. Appreciate everyone for tuning into the Pit Press Live. Tonight, I'm your host, Eric Moulton, for Ed Nunez and Nick Nunez. This has been another episode of the Pit Press Live.